Today we have a plan to look at your soul records to understand your soul origins. After that, we are going to explore some of the questions regarding your soul history. Later, we will move on to the pictures. And after pictures, if we will have time and some willingness, we can explore some additional questions if you have something in mind. Is there something you would like to say before we begin? Okay, so we are ready. We will begin by a 5 seconds exercise, by which we are going to concentrate on our inside, and we are going to create inside intention that we want for your soul records to be opened, and when you will be ready, when you feel ready, express that you are willing to open your soul records by making a statement, "Please open my soul records." We are looking now at your soul records. The soul is of this universe, meaning that it began its evolution in this universe. The evolution began from elemental kingdom, that being the earth element. The story begins in some distant planet, in a distant galaxy, where your soul is a part of collective consciousness of that planet's earth element. The planet is more like a desert planet without any kind of life, just ground, desert, and nothing more. Nothing is happening actually there. And it's like that for millions of years. So your soul is just part of that collective consciousness of the earth, and basically there are no changes, nothing is happening. The change happened after some million years have passed, and what happened was that a meteorite have struck that planet, and that meteorite, it had in itself some kind of, well, let's just say life, bacterial life, biological life, and when it struck the planet, it penetrated the atmosphere and changed the climate. Because of the climate change, in the planet began to rain. It began to rain, and from that meteorite, the bacteriological life began to spread, and some kind of seeds and spores or something began to spread, and because of the rain, it began to, well, some kind of accelerate the growth, to initiate the growth, and vegetation began to spread from that meteorite. And little by little, but that planet turned into more like a jungle planet. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And life began to evolve. Small life, mostly like insect life, let's say. And well, still nothing much have been happening. But later on, some civilization have came to that planet, and we were like scientists, and we thought, oh, this is like a nice planet, nothing is living there, and we decided to introduce kind of species of animals and look how we are going to adapt to the planet. And it was quite good. We were able to adapt. So later on, the animals began to reproduce, and a lot of earth elemental forces began to go into those animals. And in this case, your soul also entered one of those animals and inhabited one of the animal. So it began to live on the surface, go around doing its animal business in the jungles. Those were like something similar to elephants, but small ones. Like if we had a small elephant and a baby elephant, which never grew up, it never became a large elephant as we have, just always stayed small. These were like mostly dominating animals. So you have been one of those, and later on that scientific race which have been conducting that experiment on that planet with the animals, they decided to collect examples of those animals. So we picked some of the animals to test them, to look how they changed because of the planet and so on. And you have been one of the chosen ones. So we took you in and we explored you and others, and they were a bit, let's just say, confused because we have registered quite a strong change in the animals, because we saw that animal psyche have changed quite a lot, and it was very interesting for them. Basically what happened, the animals became more conscious than before, and well, they changed in their psyche, in their behavior, and we were wondering what have happened to the animals. We did understood that the animals might change because of the planet, but we didn't exactly anticipated this kind of strong change. So we decided to do more experiments, and well, basically we didn't exactly understood the nature of consciousness and the vastness and strength of the soul. We understood the principles, but we didn't exactly grasp the in-depth knowledge. So by exploring you, we learned a lot about nature of the soul, because before we thought, well, we had this more like idea that the soul is more like cultural phenomenon. Like for example, in their race, all souls are born within that race. It is not something which comes from the outside or merges or unites. That's what we believed at the moment. But by this example, we were able to see that the animal soul have merged with that planet's soul, and it have produced a new soul, which in this case was your soul. So we kind of decided to expand upon that experiment, and we thought, so maybe it is possible, for example, to merge the animal soul with their soul and see where that is going to bring them. So we took your soul, however we were able to do that. We had some kind of technologies for that, and we have merged your animal soul with one soul which was quite an advanced soul, like an elder from their civilization. It was an elder who decided to, let's just say, sacrifice his life for this experiment. So we merged the animal soul from that small elephant, which was originally you, with that elder. And during that merge, what happened was that, well, basically a new soul was born, and you became very wise soul very fast. So what happened then is that your soul began to live with that civilization. That elder's soul, well, it was no longer present in its former form. It was a new soul, which is basically the soul you have now. your soul, and you began to live in that planet. And those beings, they were, it's a bit difficult to describe, but they were like, let's just say they stood like tall and on 2 feet. They were similar in that case in humanoidal shape. They had like big eyes, were a bit skinny, but had strong, very robust skin, something close to scales, like reptilian scale, and very like shaped head. Hard to explain, but the features in the head and in the face were very elaborate. They were like exaggerated. Like chin was long and cheeks were expanded and forehead was expanded. Everything was a bit expanded and also not only expanded but more like had like spikes. It was almost sharp, you could say. So it was, let's just say, strange looking creatures, but they were wise creatures, wise beings, developing and growing and willing to expand their consciousness. And that's what they did. We were living in a certain planet which was quite technologically advanced, but spiritual development was just for them in the beginning stages. But despite that, we were growing strong. So you were living in their planet, which was in some distant galaxy. It was an advanced civilization, living there for a long time, for many thousands of years. But later on, you decided that it's time for a change, and you wanted to go somewhere else and to look for something, like, for example, look for, let's just say, new contacts, to make a contact with different races and different civilizations on different planets. Your soul was always like a bit of explorer who wanted to always explore things, to find new things. Therefore, you decided to merge with the animal and become a new soul, always to change and evolve. And this is also was in that realm what you wanted to go somewhere else, meet some other souls, other civilizations. So you began to explore the universe. You and a group of other beings from that civilization, you like entered a spaceship and decided to just travel and explore the galaxy and the universe. And you just went out and were flying for a long time. Made a lot of interesting contacts with different civilizations. Nothing of a significant nature. Nothing kind of intrigued you to stay for a longer time and to proceed with exploration. That until you came to our galactical sector, that is mostly our neighboring Andromeda galaxy and our Milky Way galaxy. And here, well, you were quite amazed about what strange things are happening here, because our galaxies were exploring very strange energies, and those energies were something you have never seen. That is, our galaxies were exploring conflict and all kinds of like discords and inability to communicate and all kinds of strange things which was not present in any other civilization, because mostly civilizations grow in one united consciousness and they all agree for the betterment of everyone else, and there is never any kind of ununion and conflict or any sort of that thing. So you were very intrigued by that, and you saw that as an, let's just say, opportunity for growth. At least that's how you looked at that then. So you decided to explore that further and deeper. So you were observing things, what was happening in Andromeda Galaxy, our neighboring galaxy, how things were developing there, and how the local civilizations were dealing with those conflicting energies. And later on, things moved to our Milky Way galaxy, and you also decided to move in, because before you were more like observer, but in here you saw an opportunity to go a little bit deeper, and you were waiting for a developed civilization to occur and to enter that civilization, something which would remind you of your original civilization, high technological advanced civilization. And such a civilization have developed. It was in Orion constellation, and you decided that you would like to join it and see what it looks like from the inside, how it feels to live inside this galaxy within a local civilization. And it was pretty for you acceptable. It was interesting. Mostly it was inhabited by kind of reptilian nature beings, which for you was acceptable because your civilization also had some kind of reptilian genes, or at least variation of that. So for you it was relatable. So you just left your body and moved into that body and decided to explore these types of lives. And in Orion there have been a lot of turbulations, a lot of, let's just say, also misaligned energies, a lot of conflict and wars. So you also wanted to explore those energies. It was very interesting for you. So you decided to, well, not engage in a conflict, but instead stay within the science and help with the science, with development of certain new scientific advancements or whatever was needed. So you were working in that civilization, but also traveling to other civilizations, working offshore. So for some time it was very interesting for you, and you kind of didn't want it to change anything. But then there have been, let's just say, political changes. The government have changed on your planet, and they accepted a strange policy that everyone who was aligned with the past government should be, well, eliminated from that planet because they were a threat for their government. And you were working for the government. It was a governmental job you were doing, that scientific job. So you basically became an outcast. At the moment you were working in another planet and you heard the news that you are not welcome back to return. So you basically didn't know what to do because you couldn't return, but the project you were working on was basically finished and you didn't know what to do. You kinda wanted to go back to your planet but wasn't able, but you didn't want to stay on that planet where you were doing your job also. Well, it was a planet which didn't have a lot of capability of supporting life, so the technology you were working on was to make that planet habitable, but it was a long-term project, so you couldn't live there for the moment. So basically you were thinking what to do now. You were confused and didn't know where to go and what to do. So for the moment you decided to move away from that planet and just try to explore our galaxy. You had a spaceship, so you moved away and just traveled for some time. Mostly that was more like a desperate travel, not an exploratory travel. You were traveling for the exploration, but it was a desperate because you didn't knew what to do and where to go, and well, it led to unfortunate consequences that your spaceship entered into some kind of meteor shower or storm, we could say, and basically it was smashed, and well, your physical body have perished, it died, and you were even more confused and you literally didn't know what to do. So you asked for some guidance, and the guides told you, well, basically you have two options. Either you go back to your original form and, well, don't explore these energies anymore, or they offered to you the ticket to the Earth planet where you could explore the energies from, let's just say, a little bit different angle than before. And for you, it sounded kind of interesting because it was, let's just say, even though long-term project or agreement, contract, but it was despite that with the termination date, meaning that eventually it will expire. So you agreed to that project because it seemed for you like an interesting opportunity to explore another concept, that being living in an isolated civilization where souls are unable to remember their past lives. So for you it sounded interesting. So you came to this civilization. You came actually, let's just say, quite late, around 6,000 years ago. First civilization you came was in ancient China, and in there, for some reason, that civilization resonated with you, mostly because probably it was dense populated, and for you, communication with people, an ability to develop things was important, and ancient China was dense with people and advanced civilization, and had their technologies, most of which we have lost for the moment. So you, by living in ancient China civilization, also began your lives as a scientist, scientific person, working with strange things. For today, if we were to look at that, it was like a crystalline technologies, something like working with crystals to create energetic resonance and create some kind of effects from those resonance. It's a bit difficult to explain the purpose of that, but obviously it had some kind of purpose at that moment. So you were living there for some time, later on moved around a little bit in the Asia, like India, Japan, but mostly centered in China, and basically living in China region almost until probably close to Middle Ages, basically to our more modern times. And then the Europe began to travel to Asia and made contact with China. You were interested? It was apparently British who made that contact, and you were very intrigued by this civilization and decided to travel with them. So we brought you to Europe. So first it was England where you were living. And basically you lived in there for quite some time, but later on moved to the Middle Europe. So it was France a lot where you have lived. Maybe some of the Germany regions, basically France and Germany, probably everything in between. So in those lives, they were different lives. Most of those lives actually were masculine and also scientific based. Some were oriented more, well, most of them basically were oriented more towards modern, for those times, science. So some were oriented towards more like medicine, others more like maybe some kind of studying like literature or mathematics or physics or something like that. But some lives are more like a with tendencycal. You began to move more and more into esoteric scientists and you began to be willing to explore more of the esoterics, and you became like a esoterical scientist. And in your past life, which seems to be in France, you were some kind of almost like an probably occultist or something like that, or let's just say esoteric scientist who was exploring all kinds of esoterical subjects and like rituals and stuff like that, and you wanted to make something out of that. You didn't know exactly what, but well, you were trying to do something. It wasn't about the result, it was about the experiment. So we were just exploring, and that leads to this life. And in this life, you are kind of moving on that energy further on, but adding more consciousness to that and like exploring it from a bit different angle, not so much occultic angle, more like conscious angle. And for you, you began to understand that that's the way for you to go. That's for you the way for you to do things. And basically, that's where we are now. So you will gonna expand upon that expansion of consciousness, the growth of consciousness, the growth of self-discovery. So that will gonna go for your whole life. More and more things will gonna be revealed and rediscovered, which was lost. And that is basically the point of this life, to return the lost knowledge, the lost memories, all those things. And you will. It is destined for you to rediscover them. So after this life, you will gonna become an inventor again, because for this life you chose a female body because it was easier to this way move into intuitive exploration of consciousness and soul. But for the next life, apparently there is a high probability that it's going to be a male body. Not entirely necessarily, it could be female body, but probably a man. We will see. The point is, in your next life, you are going to be like a teacher, which is going to teach again esoteric topics, but not like in your past life, where was a lot of like an occult exploration of spirituality. In your next life, you're going to explore it more like from the consciousness point, but it's you're planning on some kind of scientific exploration, meaning that you're going to develop some kind of scientific approach towards exploration of consciousness. That is something to be looking forward to. But until then, you will gonna have to like develop your spiritual advancement in this life. And in the next life, you can develop those scientific methods. You can actually try to explore them in this life already, but just that in your next life, you're going to reach your potential in that subject. And after next life, probably your mission on this planet is gonna be finished. You will feel satisfied in your exploration, and basically you're gonna feel mostly satisfied in your exploration in this galaxy. So you will gonna move back to your original race, and apparently that more from your soul group souls have been exploring this galaxy, and you are all going to meet again. You're gonna like talk about what happened and like reconcile those energies. After the energies are gonna be explored and accumulated and whatever you are gonna do with them, then you will feel like it's time for you to move on because you have gathered as a collective group enough experience in this galaxy sector, and you will feel like there's more exploring for you to do, and basically you will move on as a group. Apparently there is still a lot for you to discover and many new adventures on the horizon. So basically these are the most obvious energies we were able to see. So is there any questions you would like to ask about that? Well, occultism basically is working with energies, but that work is based on all kinds of rituals. It's a ritualistic way of looking at spirituality. Basically, you do certain rituals to open parts of your conscious and your soul which isn't accessible on daily basis. So it can involve certain moves or certain like drawings, certain placement of objects which affect your consciousness and like expand it and make basically release some energies which are locked in your subconscious. This is quite a science, and well, there are certain dangers there because sometimes you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what effects it's gonna have on you. Despite that, it's legitimate science, and many are like indulging themselves in that, even though normally not recommended. Yes, because in the past life you were exploring spirituality from the, well, that occultism is very mental thing because you are trying to explore spirituality from the mental point of view, like trying to understand it, spirituality with your mind. But what you found out that mind is a bit limited and you need to explore spirituality more with your intuition. So therefore you chose a woman body which has better intuition, and to try to explore spirituality like a more natural way. So you have an inner guidance where to go and what to do and what to explore now. So that's the key for your spiritual development in this life. Well, that's a very valid point that sometimes our inner guidance can lead us to danger, but that's a bit of the point of that, because the point is that you need to discover which inner signals are to be followed, because not all of the signals are to be followed, despite that they exist, but it doesn't mean you have to go those roads. So therefore you need to pick wisely which inner roads you choose, but to know that truly sometimes you need to explore. Yes, so the question is about the merging of the souls. The elephant soul was chosen to be merged with the elder soul. So the answer to that is basically this is delving into the concept of the higher plan. The statement that you were chosen was not based on the you were special, but based on that it was your destiny from the beginning. There was a higher plan, but you should be chosen and should be merged and should become what you should become. And in this life, if you feel this chosenness, it's more because of your soul is advanced because of that other aspect, that wise man aspect, that elder aspect, which is basically what you are now. You're not that elephant anymore. So, well, that soul was and is very wise soul and very advanced soul. So basically, your specialness is not based on being just special, but based on because you are an advanced soul. Strange that the story was not told from the point of view of that elder. It was a bit unusual, but for some reason, the story, the way it unfolded from the point of view of that animal, which merged with that elder. There is something there which is not clear for the moment why the story unfolded this way, but apparently this is something to be explored in the future, but the story had to be for some reason told from this point of view. It's not clear for the moment why it was told in this way. We can explore those, but which are more important for you, the life questions or the pictures? Well, let's talk about what is more important for you. You are very fortunate at this moment, even though it might not look so. But the point is that you are in a critical moment at the moment. And that critical moment is based on the fact that you are actually, like reliving that moment where you were traveling with that spaceship and you were going into nowhere and don't know. You lost your ground and you lost everything and you didn't know what you were doing. And what you did then, you made a decision to explore, because you had two options. Go back and pull out from here and just go away, or delve deeper and to explore and discover undiscovered mysteries. So this is a direct reflection of that life when you chose to come to Earth, and in this life you're also, it is correlated with that life and that decision. And now at this moment, this is that critical moment where you're looking for something, but you don't know what you're looking, and that's because you were looking in the wrong places where you should be looking, and it is basically in the spiritual field, because at the moment you are on the edge of discovering big inner treasures what you have. And probably it does relate to those, occult concepts. Something that you should at least try to familiarize yourself for the sake of recovering your past life memories. Because when you will look at some of the books, we are not going to refer you to any kind of books, you have to rediscover them yourself. But you will remember, after looking at certain occult literature, it will gonna remind you of your past life, and you will remember that you have read those books, and you will rediscover the treasures which you had in your past life, and that will catapult you into new direction in this life. and your life is going to change a lot from that. So you are in an interesting point now, and you are soon about to go into a very interesting direction. Something you haven't anticipated before, I guess. Well, you should wonder. There isn't anything that, as you say, you are not supposed to get or whatever. The point is that and there isn't any kind of karmic lessons you need to learn because you haven't made any kind of mistakes in the past, except for a little bit, let's just say, unsafe practice of occultism. So that is the main thing, that you shouldn't go beyond certain safety limits. But you will remember that very clearly, which is off limits. It shouldn't be a big problem for you, because those lessons you have learned. And the point being that there is a lot in you, well, as you say, everything you always wanted becomes true. It's not based on wishful thinking, because statistics is not so good in this world. For most people, things do not come true what we want, and that's because they don't have the karmic basis for that. But you do, because you did your homework pretty good in your past lives. Therefore, you have a good fortune. And in this life, your fortune is just about to turn into new levels. But you will have to discover it for yourself, how to utilize that and how to discover those treasures. But we are waiting for you. We are just dormant and waiting until you will discover them. Yes, because those treasures which you have created for yourself in your past lives, they are still there, like in the etheric realm or whatever you want to call it. It's just you haven't tapped into them. And during your following months and years, you will gonna learn how to tap into those powers. And you will rediscover that you have left for yourself a lot of treasures on the non-physical plane. And those treasures are gonna come like a flood. Well, the change from the scientific mind into intuitive, artistic mind was by design, was by choice. Because you, in your past lives, you overly intelligentized your lives, and you too much have invested into the intellect, and you neglected your, well, other part of the brain, the intuitive and the emotional part. But, well, basically, it was just because of lack of understanding. So for this life, you decided to over leverage on this part and go only the intuitive and the emotional path. But there is another important point here. Why the dance? The dance part is related to the movement, and in occultism there is a lot of different kinds of movements, which is important, because when we are working with energies and how energies are moving, we can affect energies by certain angular movements of the body, the way the body is moving in certain angles, and we hold our limbs in certain shapes. You probably it's probably gonna be a statement, but I will form it in a question. Are you a creator of dance moves? Yes, yes, because that's the whole point. You are not the one who learns moves. You are the one who creates the moves. But the creation of the moves is not, for you maybe it seems like a good move or whatever, but actually a lot of your moves which you are creating is you are remembering them from those occult practices, because now you're portraying them as a dance. But actually, if you will explore and you will observe your inner states, how your consciousness is changing by those moves, you will discover that in a bundle of moves there are certain specific movements which are affecting your consciousness more than others. Some are probably just like a random variations of the moves, but some of them have a real power, and you have to discover those power moves and work on those to filter them from all the other random filling moves which are just in between two forms. Another thing which would be a bit of an advice is for you to try to explore like routines or arts of Tai Chi and Qigong, because those are very, let's just say, also part of that occult movement rituals. They have certain keys, and after you will explore those movements, you will also discover a lot of things which you haven't noticed, that you were doing intuitively certain moves, but you didn't know that those moves actually affect energy and your consciousness and so on. More questions, or you would like to explore the pictures? So now the pictures. In the first picture we have best friend. So basically this person have been your friend for quite a few lives. Actually, you met in Orion and you were living there, and later, because of those political changes, you have been separated, and you came to this planet and you kind of forgot about her, but she didn't forget about you, and she basically came to this planet and found you, and in quite a few lives she was your friend. So basically it's a very good friendship. So you have been for quite a few lives best friends. That's a friend you can relate to in this life also. In the next picture we have your partner. So this partner, basically the point is for your relationship is that you are able to relate in certain energies. You have like a contract for each other, because you are able to help each other in your spiritual development and exploring of those energies, and basically you are helping each other. So at the moment you have like a vibrational harmonics between you. The energies are similar and you like fulfill harmonically each other. So because of that harmonic, basically that harmonic has attracted you to each other, and that is what is gluing your relationship. And well, as long as that harmony is gonna stay, there is potential for the continuation of the relationship. If for some reason the harmony is going to be disrupted because you're going, well, vibrational frequencies are going to change, then the relationship is going to end. And that might happen because, well, you will start to explore different kinds of vibrational frequencies. But as long as you will correlate the vibrational frequencies between each other, there shouldn't be any obstacles for you to continue to be in a partnership. The next picture we have mother. With the mother you have karmic relationship. Mother in some of the past lives, she was your, put it as your custodian, technically speaking. She was put it as your custodian to watch over you, to, let's just say, guide you, give you life advice, but not entirely in a good way for you. More like into that you should oblige and follow the social guidelines. This doesn't come from the highest consciousness point of view. It's not for the best of you to have this kind of guide. Basically, she is a guide in life and was for quite a few lives. In those former lives, she was like your employer who gave you job, and like you, when you were, for example, in certain academical circles, she was like your superior, whatever those jobs are. I'm not exactly sure, but the point is that she was always your superior, and she was always telling you do this, do that, and but it was always against your inner nature, against your soul. But she was always trying to conform you to some kind of rules, or the point is that she was a problem for you, and she should be a problem in this life too. Even though she might give some good advice sometimes, because they are based on common sense, but not always they are coming from the best of the heart. Usually they are coming from just willingness to control and for you to obey. But in your soul, you are a bit rebellious, so it doesn't always fly. There is no good and optimistic news in this relationship, and basically there is no good predictions for the outcome of this relationship. Well, far away. You don't need to be far away. You just need to be as much away that she wouldn't be able to influence you directly. That is enough of a distance, because her guidance is not for you to be guided by. Even though she is convinced that she has the right way, but it's not the right way for you. Basically, based on your soul, you should be best guide for yourself. I'm not exactly sure that somebody would be able to guide you better than yourself. Now we have brother. Well, basically there is nothing to say, because there is no soul relationship. Apparently this is just an accident that you came together in this family. He had probably some kind of contracts with the parents. You had something, and that just correlated that you met. So basically the point is that there is nothing to explore except to understand that it's just coincidence that you met. Any other questions would like to explore, or? Well, the future is a mystery, but we have potentials. It's not a good idea to give you guidance on the occult literature. It is something the part of this path is gonna be the process of discovery. During the process of discovery, you will understand the point of this discovery. Basically, the discovery process is part of spiritual development process. You have to learn to guide yourself by yourself. The only thing that we would like to maybe give you as a reference point, some kind of clue, is a movie. And it's a bit. I will gonna look for the movie's name and send you the link. And that movie is going to help you to understand more this occult world and how to guide yourself through that world, because it's a actually biographical movie. So you will gonna find it useful for your own journey. Yeah, basically two lives as it is planned as of now. In a matter of fact, you are just beginning your explorations. You're like, up until now you were exploring your room in your house, but you haven't been actually outside in the yard and further on in the city. You're just beginning your explorations. So maybe it's enough for this communication. So we would like to thank you for this ability to communicate with you. And a few more points is that now we have opened these soul records. So unusual thoughts, energies, feelings have came during this session. It is advisable to explore them. So if you're practicing some kind of meditations or something like that, so you can go into those states and those practices and remember what we have talked about, what you have felt, and explore them more deeply. Maybe understand something more or remember something from the past lives. And if you are a dreamer, like during the night you are dreaming, so then it is advisable before going to sleep to also remember this conversation, these energies, and go to sleep with them. And then during the night you will gonna explore more of those energies, and maybe in your dreams will remember your past lives also. So these energies are gonna be active for a few weeks. Later on they will gonna subside a little bit and fade, but we made a record of this conversation from our side, and in around 1 month it is going to be published on our YouTube channel, and then you will be able to listen to your recording and remember this conversation and explore it more if this is something you will gonna be willing to do. So that's it, I guess, for that. So we also would like to thank you for the ability to communicate, and also we hope that we were able to help you in any kind of way. So if there was some kind of help provided, there is a possibility to express your gratitude. There are links in our website, and I guess that covers everything. We just would like to wish you all the best.